custom stronghold that they added in the 1.497 Minecraft update. Oh my god, guys, we found the end portal!
I've spent a lot of time covering fake Minecraft speedruns over the years. So today we're gonna look at some of the most hilarious and craziest fake Minecraft speedruns I've ever seen. This is where our first runner spawns. In this situation, what would you do? Probably chop the nearby tree or try to find a village or something, but instead, this runner runs straight to a shipwreck in the nearby ocean. Not suspicious at all. He doesn't find anything good in this chest, but somehow he knows to go to this other chest where he finds a ton of crazy loot and a potion of water breathing, which is just not possible. So he uses this potion and then uses a dolphin to quickly swim to a ruined portal. It seems like he wouldn't be able to use such a big ruined portal to enter the nether, but he finds a ton of obsidian in the chest, which just isn't possible, and so is able to make a little portal of his own. Once he's in the nether, the runner quickly finds a fortress, where he stumbles upon a diamond blaze. Yeah, that's exactly what these are. When he kills one, it drops diamonds. So he just kills a bunch of these as they spawn and gathers a ton of diamonds. Oh, and they also drop blaze rods, of course. The runner is able to get full diamond gear and all the blaze rods he needs, so he's able to go gather some ender pearls. He finds a bastion, but he can't seem to find a single piglin to trade with, so he has to find another bastion, which this time luckily does have some piglins hanging around. So he gets all the pearls he needs, but everything goes wrong when the runner makes the mistake of opening a chest. He's cornered by the piglins, but luckily still has fire resistance from a potion he drank earlier, and so he makes a quick escape through the lava. So once the speedrunner heads through the nether portal, he ends up in a village, something that is very convenient for him considering he still needs beds. So he gathers some beds and then finds a diamond golem. He couldn't at least come up with something new? He uses the diamonds he gets from the golem to craft an enchanting table and enchants his gear, something that must be a first for speedrunners. He then locates the stronghold and immediately walks right to the portal. The rest of this run is normal, so let's move on. This next runner spawns right in a village, and in a house's chest, he finds a flint, which normally wouldn't be out of the ordinary, but the smithing table here shows us that this is a toolsmith house, where flint cannot spawn. It only spawns in Fletcher houses. And in this village, he finds 1, 2, 3, 4 iron golems, way more than should naturally spawn in a village of this size, as the number of golems is based on the number of village houses. So he gets all he needs from the village and then swims through this lake, remember this for later, in order to get to a ruined portal, where he finds a ton of insane loot in the chest. He finishes the portal and heads into the nether, where right next to his portal we can see a space in the ground that clearly was a portal that was broken by the runner, showing us that he has already been here. He finds a fortress next, which he doesn't get the achievement for entering, and when he finds a spawner, there is a ton of blazes, way more than should naturally be here considering he just showed up. He gets all the blaze rods he needs and then finds a chest with obsidian, which just is not possible. He heads into a bastion next, where he finds a ridiculous amount of gold in some of the chests, which he trades with some piglins and ends up getting a lot of pearls, a pretty impossible amount. Next, the runner heads to a very specific spot in the bastion and builds a portal, which brings him into a random cave in the overworld. No, that's not right. So he heads back into the nether and back through the portal once again, and now he's back to his portal that he originally entered the nether with. Strange. He heads back to the lake from earlier in the run and mines straight down, right into the stronghold. And once he's in the end, all of the crystals are already gone, and so the runner is able to kill the dragon super quickly. This next runner spawns right in, and before even chopping a tree, he runs directly to a humongous village that he clearly already knew the location of. And I guess because the village is so big, the runner thinks they could get away with there being 8 iron golems. Wow. In the village's blacksmith, the runner finds exactly 10 obsidian, the required amount to build a portal, and some other pretty good loot. He leaves the village, but notice how it's already nighttime, only a few minutes into the run. Something that is strange considering it's supposed to take 10 minutes to switch to night. Nearby, he finds 2 lava pools right next to each other, and even though he already has the obsidian from earlier, he decides to use one of the pools to make a portal. Remember this for later. He finds a bastion right after entering the nether, where he finds netherite in one of the chests, which is perfect considering there's a smithing table right here. But of course, it isn't possible for smithing tables to spawn in bastions. What a surprise. The runner grabs some gold and finds just a couple piglins to trade with, which seems like it wouldn't really work, but surprisingly it does. He's able to get 20 ender pearls fairly quickly, which obviously isn't possible. Using the obsidian he found earlier in the run, he builds a quick portal and heads back to the overworld. But wait, he never went to a fortress when he was in the nether, so he doesn't have blaze rod. Oh wait, but he does. The runner must have cut his recording when heading through the portal, and now all of a sudden he has blaze powder that he didn't have before. So he's able to make Eyes of Ender and head into the end, where he doesn't even bother breaking any of the crystals, as he seems to just be able to kill the dragon right after it perches. This next runner spawns in an absolutely terrible seed with no visible structures nearby, but for some reason decides to continue this run instead of resetting for a better seed. This decision makes more sense when the runner runs right to a village, where he finds a ton of diamonds in the chest of a normal village house, something that is obviously not possible. The runner finds a second village very close nearby, where he's able to find a ton more diamonds, and in one of the chests, he finds a potion of levitation. So he eventually makes the strange decision to drink the potion and floats upwards quite a bit. What is he doing? Oh, alright, that makes sense, I guess. So the runner proceeds to destroy all of the crystals, but he needs some blocks. So he cuts the recording and all of a sudden has plenty. All right, we're done with this one. This next run starts out normal. The runner loots a village and then just a couple minutes in, he cuts his recording suddenly and then just continues playing. But if we look closer at the footage, we can just barely spot in chat that he looked up the coordinates of a ruined portal. Right after this, there's a few more jump cuts that are slightly less obvious. These were most likely just to help the runner find the ruined portal, which he eventually mines straight down and right into. He grabs some obsidian from the portal's chest, which he doesn't get the achievement for. After this, I'm pretty sure the runner just realizes he doesn't have a flint, and so all of a sudden the chest has a flint, which it didn't before. And so he heads into the nether, and wait, all of a sudden this is no longer the original speedrunner playing. It's Illumina, a famous Minecraft speedrunner. Well, at least this one is creative. In this next run, just watch the timer for a sec. And there it goes. Yeah, that seems pretty slow. The runner grabs some stuff and heads into the nether, but all of a sudden has these weird berries in their inventory. I have no idea what these are, but whatever. When the runner fires a bow at some blazes, they die oddly fast, considering the bow is unenchanted. When they're trading with a piglin, the runner cuts the recording and returns with 16 ender pearls. Not even a little bit suspicious. They also just randomly cut when they're heading to the stronghold, which by the way is pretty easy for them to spot because of this patch of flowers. What do you know? This next runner loads into the world, but his pause screen is open, showing us that he cut the recording because your pause screen is not supposed to be open when you load a new world. This explains him spawning right inside of a village, where he loots every single house, no stone left unturned. The runner heads to a desert temple next, where he has clearly already been because of this one block right here. You seeing what I'm seeing? This block is supposed to be blue, so the runner must have just forgotten and replaced it with the wrong color. This is further explained by, well, actually he's fine, because he disarmed the TNT in advance. The runner heads to the nether next, where he finds a whole group of blazes just hanging out in the middle of a fortress, nowhere near a spawner. He heads back to the overworld next, and while he's exploring a cave, just mines right into the stronghold, where he suspiciously locates the portal right away, which by the way is already fully lit. He heads into the end, but then for some reason picks a fight with some endermen and ends up losing. This next runner starts by loading in, and then heads directly to a ruined portal. He finds 4 tools in the portal chest, but the maximum possible is 3. When he enters the nether, all the lava near him looks normal. But remember that when you first enter the nether, lava has to flow to its final position, showing us that he has already entered the nether. We can also spot a ladder that seems to be the remnant of a failed clutch from a past attempt. The runner spends a lot of time in a bastion before heading out of the nether. Oh, the portal he built brought him right into the stronghold. Can you be more obvious? obvious, the end portal he finds already has 6 eyes in it, something that is possible but incredibly rare. Once he enters the end, we can see that a few of the crystals are missing, which seems weird, but most of this is invalidated when the recording freezes, and then unfreezes a minute later with the dragon being dead and the run being over. This run starts out pretty normal, with the runner just getting some standard gear from a ruined portal, but things start to get weird when he's putting together the portal, and there it is. He cuts the recording and returns with a bunch of iron armor. He heads into the nether and hunts down 3 blazes, but when he kills them, he gets 7 blaze rods. When the runner is heading back to the overworld, there's another strange cut, and right in the overworld he finds like a million endermen. Guess that explains the cut. The runner heads to the stronghold next, but seems to already have an idea of where it is, and speeds up the whole process, which is pretty obvious. The next runner starts off by just heading to a village, where he suspiciously finds obsidian in a normal house. He finds plenty more obsidian in a blacksmith and again in a normal house, and has enough to enter the nether, where he heads to a seemingly random spot in the middle of nowhere. When he digs down though, he ends up right on top of a blaze spawner in a fortress, showing us that maybe this spot wasn't so random at all. He grabs the rods he needs and ends up back in the overworld, where he cuts the video and just ends up in a completely different location. He digs right down just like before and unsurprisingly finds the stronghold. And just to add to all of this, the runner also digs down horizontally in a very specific direction and ends up right in the portal room. He enters a conveniently pre-lit portal and then plays the classic "my video cut out" card. This next runner strangely spawns at the top of a village tower, where he finds some iron in a chest. And next the runner finds a lava pool, but there's suspiciously already some obsidian. He finishes building a portal and heads into the nether, where he passes what seems to be the remnants of a past portal, showing that he has already been here. He hunts down a fortress next, where he finds a ton of blazes, plenty of rods to go around. Once he's back in the overworld, he takes a look at this huge mountain, and then starts to literally scaffold hack all the way to the top. Once he's at the top, he mines all the way down into the stronghold, and once he's in the end, he scaffolds even more. The next run must be pretty recent, because it's in 1.18. Something we can tell from these huge mountains that the runner decides to climb his way up. He heads to a completely random spot on the top of the mountain and digs right down until he's on top of a ruined portal. He heads into the nether and finds a fortress, where he follows an incredibly blatant path of blocks that leads him right to a blaze spawner. Once he's back in the overworld, the runner finds a village that just randomly has a jungle tree in it for no reason. He rides a boat out into the middle of an ocean and spots another boat just sitting there. So he hops out and mines straight down. What do you know? Into the stronghold. The runner heads into the ends, but all the end pillars have ladders that just lead him straight to the top. The next runner spawns in and quickly realizes that he's stranded. He has a plan though. The runner digs straight down and finds an underground tree. Come on. He crafts a boat and rides it in basically a straight line across the ocean until he stumbles upon a conveniently located ruined portal that has some crazy loot. The runner enters the portal but cuts the video and ends up appearing in the middle of a nether fortress. He grabs some blaze rods and then heads back to the overworld, where he hunts down a village. But things get pretty weird again when he finds ender pearls in a village house. And even though it's only 2, it's plenty to help him find the stronghold that ends up being very close by. Once he's in the end, the runner starts taking out crystals. The dragon loses more and more health each time a crystal is destroyed, until he only has a sliver of health left, making the runner able to pretty quickly finish up the run. The next run starts off pretty normal, until the runner finds a ruined portal with blaze rods in the chest, something that is obviously not actually possible. He then skips past a desert temple to head directly into a village house that gives him some insane loot, showing us that he likely already knew this loot was here, hence skipping everything else to prioritize it. He also finds a bed in a blacksmith, which just isn't possible. The runner strangely builds a portal with a lava pool, even though he already has 10 obsidian, something that makes more sense when he grabs his blaze rods and then builds a portal to exit the nether with that 10 obsidian. And what do you know, the portal takes the runner straight to the stronghold. He doesn't even have any pearls yet though, but all is well because he finds plenty in a chest. Once he's in the end, there's a jump cut, actually 2 jump cuts, actually 3, and after the third one, you can see super quickly in chat that the runner actually modified the dragon, likely just to make it perch, which it quickly does after these commands were entered. This next guy conveniently spawns right next to a village where he finds a diamond sword that has already been used, something that he clearly placed here before the run. He also spots count 'em, 3 golems in the village. Very suspicious. He crafts some gear with the iron from the golems, but then all of a sudden has obsidian in his inventory, which he uses to enter the nether. We can see an unlit portal right next to the portal that was just created by him entering the dimension. So it would seem like he took a stop in the nether before the run, but forgot to destroy the portal. This is further proven by this bridge leading him to the nether fortress that he clearly just built himself. He finds a blaze spawner next, or should I say 2 blaze spawners, and then heads to the stronghold, which he finds by just walking down a cave. He then follows a suspicious path of stone slabs placed in a very specific sequence. That brings him all the way to the portal. The next runner spawns right in the middle of a village, where he finds diamonds in a normal house, not a blacksmith. He then heads directly to another village, and directly to another, and another. At least try to pass it off as real. He heads into the nether next, where he finds this absolute whale of a fortress, and takes down some blazes before making his way to the end, where there's just no end crystals, and the dragon already has a ton of health gone. This first runner spawns at the very bottom of an ocean, but quickly finds a boat on the surface. He rides the boat all the way to a nearby village that is strangely very small, and finds some very suspicious iron in the chest of the one and only house. It's not a blacksmith though, so we can tell that this is fake. He then swims down into a fountain, and finds a pathway that leads him to a ruined portal. How creative. He heads into the nether, and all of a sudden has a fire resistance potion in his inventory. He drinks it and jumps right into some lava, and wow, he's now in a nether fortress. The next runner spawns by waking up in a village bed and grabbing some clearly fake iron from the village chest. He continues to kill an iron golem that strangely drops no iron. The runner walks along the village path until out of nowhere the path stops, but he is magically lifted up into the air and dropped where the path continues. This was very clearly somehow done with levitation because of the effect we see in the command output in chat. The runner keeps walking until he finds a ruined portal that is huge and weirdly already lit, making it seem like this world has already been speedrun. We see more of this when he enters the nether and walks right past what seems to be the sloppily cleaned up remnants of a previous portal. The trend continues when he finds a fortress and sees what seems to be a player's dirt bridge in the corner of his view, and then just picks up a random blaze rod as he continues to walk. This next runner spawns right next to a shipwreck, and in the chest inside of it, he finds a shotgun? But that's not it. This next runner starts by heading to a village that he seems to already know the location of. He grabs some tools and starts to collect beds, but things start getting really weird when he finds a ladder under one of the beds, and the ladder leads him right to a random chest that is full of iron. He then finds a huge ruined portal spawned right in the middle of a village house. In the ruined portal chest is a suspiciously large amount of obsidian, which he uses to finish the portal and head into the nether. He immediately finds a fortress, but the blaze spawner he finds was clearly just placed by him before the run. He didn't even really try to hide it. He also stumbles upon a random chest that has a ton of ender pearls in it, just enough to get him to the stronghold and into the end. But he makes a mistake while bridging, and the speedrun is over. This next runner strangely spawns at the top of a very tall jungle tree, literally in the clouds. There's a village nearby, so he heads straight to it, and although it doesn't make much of a difference, there are no beds in any of the houses. But things get really weird when he finds iron in a random village house. Then he heads over to a desert temple that strangely has no pressure plate. Watch what happens when he's heading out of the temple. Jared, roll the clip. Yeah, he clearly cuts the recording and is suddenly in what seems to be a different temple in a different area. Because of this change of setting, he quickly finds a ruined portal and heads into the nether. He then hunts down a blaze spawner, where he gets 1 blaze rod for killing 1 blaze. But then all of a sudden, after breaking the spawner, has 7. I don't remember spawners dropping blaze rods, but whatever. This next runner spawns right by a village. But what's weird is when he pulls some iron out of a chest and he doesn't get the achievement. The same goes for when he kills a zombie. No achievement. When the runner mines some coal ore, he gets diamonds instead of coal, but he sort of just plays it off. Now he just needs to head to the nether, but it's made quite easy for him when he mines some random blocks and randomly ends up with a ruined portal right in front of him. Once in the nether, he finds a ghast that when killed drops a blaze rod. He kills a few more ghasts, all of which continue to drop rods, and something similar goes for some piglins he kills that all drop ender pearls. Once back in the overworld, he literally falls into the stronghold, where he enters the end. But things start to go haywire when he gets hit by an enderman and starts to strangely levitate into the air until he ends up dying. Wait, you guys have all seen this graph before. You know what it means. You know what to do. This next runner strangely spawns underwater and swims up through a conveniently located hole in a block of ice to get to the surface. They run right into a small forest and then to a nearby village. The village's blacksmith is a bit strange though, because of the vines the runner finds in the chest alongside the standard blacksmith loot. Next, they head to a desert temple where they find blaze spawn eggs. The runner uses the temple's TNT to set up an elaborate trap to kill the blazes, but it sort of just blows up in their face, literally. Well, the runner does get one blaze rod, but I think they changed their plans because they head to a crazy biome next where they go on quite the trek. And there's the end portal, but the runner dies of fall damage. This next run starts off with another very strange spawn, this time in the middle of a tree. The runner breaks his way out and heads to a village where he finds an elytra. This guy is actually quite a good flyer. He stumbles upon a desert temple, but when he goes down into it, he completely ignores the chests and just keeps mining until he finds a nether portal. He does some more fancy flying in the nether and actually gets into a pretty heated mid-air battle with some blazes. He heads back to the overworld and goes to the stronghold via elytra, but things go very wrong. This next run actually starts off pretty normal, with the runner finding a village. Oh, but he completely ignores the village, and does the same for a nearby desert temple. Ironically, he actually stops for a ruined portal and heads into the nether, although he has basically no items. But he is saved by some pretty lucky loot that he finds in a fortress. He kills some blazes and must get a confidence boost from it because he challenges some wither skeletons next. But he ends up backing down and getting cornered, which leads to his death. This first runner spawns in a boat as it falls from the sky and into the center of a village. And the village chests are filled with loot that he clearly spawned in before the run. Totally unrealistic. But he actually also finds a totem of undying and a chest full of lava buckets. Oh, this guy is evil. But things start to get really weird when he chops down a tree, and at the top of the trunk he finds a barrel full of ender pearls and a compass. He follows the compass all the way to a shipwreck that strangely has a water-breathing potion, which he swiftly uses before diving into the ocean. The runner then digs down in a random spot and, to his luck, digs right into an underground ruined portal. But before he enters the portal, he uses a randomly placed anvil to rename his axe to Luck. You'll see why soon. He heads into the nether, where he spawns right next to a fortress, and when he kills a blaze, it drops an insane amount of rods. Maybe something to do with this? Well, that's not it. He also kills a wither skeleton, who drops 3 wither skulls. We'll see what he does with those in a minute. But first, the runner returns to the overworld by jumping into lava. Well, he does respawn in the overworld with all of his items, but whatever. Let's move on to him locating the stronghold, which consists of him simply hopping on a minecart track that takes him right there. Once he's in the end, he spawns a wither, and, well, this next runner starts by heading into a village house and after getting his gains, the runner apparently needs to pick something up. At his house? Yeah, somehow he just has a house. And conveniently, it has some ender pearls for him to use. While he's exploring a cave, he just stumbles upon the stronghold. But he still needs blaze rods for the portal, right? Well, the spawner in the stronghold is spawning blazes instead of silverfish, which works out perfectly for him. Once he's in the end, though, there are just no pillars. Never seen that that one before. This next speedrunner starts by spawning in a mine shaft. There is somehow a tree down here, so he chops that down and grabs some basic mineshaft loot. But things get even weirder when he finds a strip mine? Yeah, I don't know what that's about, but he actually finds diamonds at the end of it. He also kills a zombie and it drops blaze rods, so, you know. He heads to the surface for the first time in the whole run and sort of just walks around for like 10 minutes. But things start to get strange again when he kills a random rabbit and it drops ender pearls. Nice. Next, he strangely turns off chat and then walks backwards a little bit, presumably onto a command block, as he is suddenly teleported into the stronghold. We couldn't see the command block output though because of chat being off. He does the same thing again, but this time the command block gives him strength. He enters the end, but notice the ladder on this pillar. He uses it to get onto the pillar and break the crystal, and to get to the next one, he walks on air? He uses this same trick to get to all of the other crystals, but then he fails an MLG water bucket. All is good though, because when he respawns, he's in the credits. For the rest of the video, count how many fake things I point out that the runners do, and leave a comment down below with the final count. One lucky comment will win some cash. This next run has to be one of the funniest I've ever seen. This guy starts by stealing a villager's bed and then mercilessly punching him. Well, now he's on the run, but watch what happens when he chops down this tree. Well, now he's in the stronghold and has some ender pearls, but he still can't light the portal. I guess he quits? Wait. That is one long portal. He enters the nether and finds a bastion with a secret enchanting room. Oh, unimportant, I guess. Well, what's this? Oh. Now he has all he needs to enter the end, but when he returns to the overworld, he's in the middle of the desert. But check out what happens when he chops this random tree. There you go, I guess. This next run starts with the runner just strangely turning around out of nowhere and walking directly towards a horse with a saddle, something that he clearly spawned in before the run. He rides the horse in order to save some time and heads straight to a village, where he finds chests with insane items. After the runner has killed a few animals, he opens up his inventory and the newly obtained meat is suddenly cooked. Once the speedrunner heads to the nether, he locates a fortress, but instead of killing blazes to get blaze rods, he just stumbles upon a random dispenser that's filled with, what do you know, blaze rods. And when he actually does kill a blaze, it instead just drops ender pearls. Nice. This next runner somehow spawns in the nether, which I guess actually works out because there's trees right next to him. He then finds a ruined portal that is full of very blatantly cheated in items and heads straight up to a nearby fortress, where he grabs himself some blaze rods. But things start to get really weird when he goes into the overworld and spawns in the middle of a jungle, where he stumbles upon a jungle temple. He sort of taunts the booby trap for a second until he actually gets hit by it, and then he gets into a chest that has some pretty good loot. But what's crazy is the loot he gets from the chest hidden by the combination lock. He takes these ender pearls with him and starts to randomly climb a tree, where at the top of it, there's just a hole in the middle of the trunk. And look at that, an end portal at the bottom of it. Well, unfortunately, because of the fall distance, he doesn't live to tell the tale. The next runner starts by heading right into a village, and the chests he finds don't actually seem suspicious, something that's pretty rare in these fake speedruns. He then stumbles upon a random hole in the ground, and pulls something pretty crazy. Justin, roll the clip. What just happened? Head to the nether, grab blaze rods, grab ender pearls, and then find the stronghold. Actually, he didn't do that. He finds some random parkour thing in the middle of nowhere, and, Okay, but that's it, right? Nope. He enters the end and finds a bomb. Well, there goes the dragon, but it's not quite dead. Okay, well, there you go. Speedrun over. This next run starts off with, oh no. A nearby village is also on fire, and the runner attempts to salvage some items from the houses, but he doesn't have much luck. Although, he finds another village right after, where he finds plenty of loot, most of which is pretty clearly cheated in. But things start to get really weird when he finds a ruined portal? Well, he seems to think that's what it is. The nether fortress he finds strangely has a chest in place of a blaze spawner, conveniently full of, well, but he doesn't even need Eyes of Ender. Here's why. This first speedrun starts with the runner making the very interesting choice to mount a pig that he had clearly already spawned in, considering the saddle on it and the carrot on a stick he finds randomly on the ground. This is all very weird because his next stop is a village, and as I'm sure you can imagine, it takes him quite some time to get there. But there's something odd going on with this village. After looting all of the chests of their very clearly staged loot, the runner starts trading with some of the villagers, but they're all fully leveled up to master, which explains why they're all standing perfectly still, as they must have been spawned in with custom commands. Next, he heads to a seemingly random mountain where he digs a hole in the wall to find a ruined portal. When he enters the portal, the runner is smack in the middle of a fortress, where a blaze spawner is directly in front of him. Once he grabs some blaze rods, he heads back to the overworld where he conveniently finds an enderman. But notice how his sword is now enchanted, something that is further explained when he kills an enderman and it drops a crap load of pearls, leading me to believe that the new enchantment on the runner's sword is looting. He crafts himself some Eyes of Ender, but instead of using them to find the stronghold, he just throws an ender pearl in a random direction, and it lands in the stronghold. Wow. I'm mostly just confused by this run, so I'll score it with a C? No, how about just 2 thumbs up? This runner starts his run by making himself some simple wooden tools, but things start to get fishy when out of nowhere he has instantaneously switched to creative mode, with no further mention or explanation. He flies to a village with his newfound abilities, but one of these chests has a shield, 11 ender pearls, and a sharpness 250 wooden sword. All things that you can obviously not get from a village. When the speedrunner closes the chest, he is in a totally new area, this time in a random house that was obviously pre-built, implying a cut in his recording. After he leaves the random house, he finds a random underground staircase that leads to a dungeon. But the dungeon isn't spawning zombies like it normally should. Instead, it's spawning blazes, completely replacing the standard step of going to the nether in a speedrun. Right next to the spawner is the stronghold, which isn't even much of a surprise at this point. He uses the pearls from the house and the blaze rods from the dungeon to craft Eyes of Ender and enter the end. Once in the end, the dragon is somehow already dead, and the speedrunner has some brave things to say in chat about it, considering how poorly he just faked that whole run. I'll score this run with an F. That stands for focus all of your energy into trying again. This next run is interesting because the speedrunner is very clearly in creative mode, even though his hotbar says differently. Well, the hotbar is obviously edited in, so I guess that explains it. Since he doesn't get wood from chopping this tree, he just has to give it to himself with creative. Next, he flies to a village that he completely decimates. He goes mining next, and yeah, he actually does pretend to be mining even though he's in creative, but just gives himself the items instead. After a bit of mining, he sort of just goes AFK, but starts to mine blocks insanely fast when he returns, so I guess he turned on an auto clicker or something. There's a random cut in the recording where afterwards, the runner is just suddenly next to diamonds, but he had just switched to creative, so he must have found the diamonds in spectator mode. After crafting full diamond gear, the runner heads back to the surface by literally just flying. No shame at all here. To find the stronghold, he sort of just floats around for a while, but once he's actually there, he has a pretty hard time finding the portal. But killing the dragon is even harder for him, which is weird considering he's literally in creative and has an auto clicker. I'll give this run a D for person. This next run starts off pretty normally with the runner just chopping down some trees, but things start to get fishy when a simple log log drops a ton of overpowered items after being mined. Now that he has a ton of crazy gear, the speedrunner follows a loose path of out-of-place blocks, all the way to a ravine. I guess he's not smart enough to remember simple directions. Once in the ravine, he finds the perfect amount of lava needed to create a nether portal. After entering the nether, the speedrunner finds a strangely large amount of endermen just standing around. Remember those items he got from the tree earlier in the run? Well, the sword had looting on it, which allows him to get a few extra pearls from every enderman he kills, speeding up the process. Once he has enough ender pearls, he stumbles upon a ton of blazes just out in the open. But where's the fortress? Well, there's no fortress. Surprise, surprise. He heads back to the overworld, Eyes of Ender now in hand, but before he throws his first eye, he zooms in his FOV and looks up into the sky, before changing it back to normal. But after this change, he is now in a completely different area than before, now right next to the stronghold. He explains this by saying in chat that, sorry, POV got glitched lag. Yeah, that checks out. Once in the end, he takes just about 10 minutes to wrap up the dragon fight, but it all becomes worth the wait when he reveals his Minecraft skin to us. This guy gets an A, strictly for the level of artistry he clearly dedicated to his skin. This run is one of the strangest I have ever seen. It starts off with the speedrunner finding a treehouse with a chest full of various items, like armor, an ender chest, and an axolotl, but things get even weirder. Most speedrunners would head to the nether next and grab blaze rods and ender pearls, but this guy does something completely different. He mines down in a very specific location directly into the stronghold, where he enters a fully lit end portal. You might think that he did this simply to cut out the step of going to the nether, but he's actually just here to get ender pearls. Yeah, that's right. This guy is a genius. You wish you could even comprehend his speedrunning skills. And then he just heads back to the overworld like nothing ever happened. Now it's time to go to the nether, but while he's in the process of building the portal, something terrible happens. Jacob, roll the clip. Once he's gotten his blaze rods from the nether, he heads back to the end, where he has quite the setup to fight the dragon. But honestly, this is pretty underwhelming. Let me show you how I would do this personally. Alright, let me show you how it's done. You're gonna want to construct this very specific machine. I like to call this one the atom bomb. Patent pending, of course. Okay, there we go. Let's see how this works. There goes the dragon, guys. Oh wait, he's still alive. Alright, this is my newest invention. This one is called the Atom Bomb 2. It's time to go. Drop the weapons. Load them up, boys. Let's go. Let's see what's happening. Wow. Is he dead? Do I win? Did I win the speedrun? This first speedrunner starts by immediately finding a shipwreck with blaze powder. He finds a village next where you can spot 2 iron golems, something that cannot be possible because of how small this village is. 1 iron golem spawns per every 10 or so villagers, and there's no way this village has over 20 villagers. He finds an ocean monument right next to the village, and notice these lanterns right here. He goes to where these lanterns are and finds the gold room right under them. But lanterns don't naturally spawn here. This is what this spot is supposed to look like. This tells us that the runner placed these lanterns here himself to remember where the gold was. And right next to this monument, he finds another, also with the artificial lanterns. Notice how he never saw a single guardian. Weird. He builds a portal and heads into the nether, where he attempts an advanced speedrunning technique where you use the pie chart in the F3 menu to determine what direction the nearest bastion is in. Typically, this technique is pretty complicated and requires some thinking, but the runner ignores all that and just spams keys randomly. He even goes into spectator mode by accident. Once he's done pretending to locate a bastion, he finds one, but he clearly already knew it was here, something that is further shown by this obviously man-made tunnel that brings him right into it. Next, he finds ender pearls in the bastion chest, which is not possible. The runner returns to the same village from before to collect beds, but notice how the golems don't attack him. This proves that they were spawned in, as naturally spawned golems turn aggressive when the beds of the villagers are broken. This is further shown when the golems don't fight back when they're being attacked. Okay, let's move on to the next run. This next runner starts by immediately heading to a village, where he finds skeleton horses. After looting this village, the runner heads to a second village right next to the first. But this second village is very obviously a village from the 1.8 version of the game, something that is shown by the gravel paths and the lack of farms. How this happened, I'm not sure, considering the first village the runner found was perfectly normal and from the newest version of the game, and the runner is playing on the newest version. The runner finds a very overpowered blacksmith with all of the obsidian he needs for a nether portal, but instead of heading into the nether, he just runs for a very long time in a random direction until he finds a desert temple. Inside the desert temple, the colors in the pattern on the ground are swapped. Here's an example of what they're supposed to look like. The runner steps on the pressure plate in the temple, but instead of it triggering TNT, it triggers a dropper in the wall that gives him blaze rods. The runner heads into the nether and walks straight to a strange ruined portal, with a ton of piglins for him to trade with and a chest full of ender pearls. Okay, this next run is weird. Just wait. The runner starts by looting a village, and things seem normal until they enter a desert temple and just very blatantly cut their recording. Something that isn't entirely explained quite yet. They enter the nether and cut their recording once again, but this time they end up with blaze rods in their inventory that they didn't have before the cut. The runner eventually heads back to the overworld and just randomly ends up with ender pearls in their inventory, which allow them to find the stronghold. But here's where things start getting really weird. The runner finds a Pokeball, and inside of the Pokeball was apparently a Charizard, which the runner rides on top of in the end to fight the Ender Dragon. Basically a dragon versus dragon duel. Oh, and they spawn a bunch of other Pokemon too. This is easily the coolest way you could possibly finish your speedrun. This next runner spawns right in a Badlands biome, where he finds a chest with insane loot. He loots a village next, and then heads into the nether, where we can spot an extra portal, showing us that he has already entered the nether on this world. This is further shown by the many striders with saddles that are just sitting here in the lava, something that is not possible because there is only a 2.3% chance of a strider spawning with a saddle, and there's like, what, 5 here? Not counting the one just sitting on another one's head. The runner finds a bastion next that has ender pearls in its chests, and there are just no piglin brutes throughout the entire bastion. The runner gets all the items he needs and is ready to head back to the overworld, but notice how there's remnants here of a past portal. He builds a portal right in this spot, and once back in the overworld, is able to walk straight to the stronghold. Let's move on. This next runner turns right around immediately after spawning, and finds a village. How much more obvious could these get? The runner loots the village and ends up fighting an iron golem that is conveniently located in a spot where it can't fight back. The runner rides a boat out into the middle of the ocean and hops out to swim down to a ruined portal. But obviously they can't use this portal to enter the nether. Oh, but it's fine. There's just a random trapdoor here that leads them right to a portal that is perfectly ready to use. While the runner is exploring a fortress, they find a gift from the blazes. Oh, okay. The runner eventually heads to the end, but something's not right. Oh. This next runner starts by looting a village, and things seem all cool until they pass an upside down cow. The runner heads right into the nether, and once they're in it, mines straight down and right into what seems to be a man-made cave, then follows a very specific path that leads them directly to a bastion. No pie chart required. Both chests that the speedrunner finds have an impossible amount of gold, and notice how the bastion already has a hole pre-built for the piglins to trade in. Here's when things start getting tricky. When the speedrunner mines down next to the piglin hole to collect the loot from trading, we can see that there was this one little block already mined out here that's not visible from above the piglin hole. After falling next to this one block and collecting all of the items from the piglins, the runner has an insane number of pearls and obsidian, an amount that wouldn't be possible from trading, even with this many piglins. The runner clearly placed this loot in the one little block before the run, so that they could sneak them into their inventory without any cuts. The rest of the run is pretty normal, so let's move on. This next runner spawns right next to a shipwreck, which is either really lucky or just really fake. As the runner heads to a nearby village, we can see random gunpowder and arrows on the ground, showing us that the runner played on this world already, as these are items that drop from killing mobs. The village's blacksmith has some very obviously fake loot. The runner finds a ruined portal next, where there are some random, strange sheep all around him. Not sure why he put those there. The runner finds a bastion that has insane loot, including a ton of diamonds, an enchanted diamond sword, and netherite. There's also conveniently a smithing table right next to the chest, just so that the runner can make a quick netherite sword. There's a blaze spawner in the middle of the bastion, so the runner can completely ignore finding a fortress. The runner trades for the pearls he needs and then runs to the nether in a random direction for like 3 minutes, until he finds a hole in the ground where a portal obviously was previously. The runner builds a portal in this exact spot, and once he's back in the overworld, he immediately digs straight down and ends up in the portal room, which, by the way, the portal is fully lit. This next runner starts by immediately finding a ruined portal, where he finds wildly unrealistic loot in the chest, and heads straight into the nether. Once he's in the nether, the runner runs right around this hill here, and right on the other side is a fortress. This proves that he had already located the fortress before the run, as it wouldn't have been possible to see the fortress from the portal. Of course, because this hill is blocking the view. There's this bridge linked to the fortress that is clearly man-made, as well as a second bridge later on that is even more obviously fake. The runner kills some blazes and gets the rods he needs, but what about pearls? Well, he just finds those in a chest, obviously. The runner heads back to the overworld and does something pretty interesting when he finds the stronghold. See, when he's throwing his eyes, one lands right in the ground, meaning that he's basically standing on top of the stronghold. But instead of mining down right there, he walks over to a different spot nearby and mines straight down and into the portal room, showing us that he knew exactly where it was all along. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed, and watch one of my other videos about fake Minecraft speedruns.